All right, this is Chris from Brothaspeak Podcast, where we discuss Black LGBT issues and topics. And today I have an extremely special guest to bring some insight into a serious issue facing our community today. Our guest today is a New York-based creative director, producer, actor, and choreographer with over 10 years experience in the digital film production, theater, and choreography. He's worked with a slew of mediums that includes directing and choreography for off-Broadway, regional, and international shows, along with music videos, indie shorts, commercials, and documentaries. And there's one particular documentary, we invited him to the show to discuss his latest, which is called Party Boy, Black Diamonds and Ice Castles. Love the title. Party Boy actually features real stories of people who are thinking of using methamphetamine and also deals with the effects, usage, and surviving drug addiction. And it also explores gay men, in particular men of color, with within the 5 boroughs of New York City, are suddenly inundated with the opportunities to, quote, party and play. We've heard that term before, but are quick to discover a future of uncertainty and potential ailments that include depression, addiction, liver damage, stroke, and even psychosis. So this particular cinematic portrayal grants an unprecedented voyeuristic insight into a taboo subject and brings awareness to all points of view. So I am very happy to introduce Mr. Michael Rice. How you doing, Mr. Rice?
Thank you so much. I'm doing quite well. And yourself? I'm
doing great. You know, what struck me about this particular film, because I saw the trailer, and I was completely blown away, because it's something that kind of went under the nose of many people. For myself, I really honestly did not know that it really affected our community like this. How did you get into this particular subject, first off?
Okay, well, first, how I got into it wasn't something I necessarily sought out. I basically was affected by it personally, and what I mean by that is that I had a few friends who ended up getting addicted to crystal meth, and at the time I had no idea exactly what it was, but I knew something in their personality and their behavior and their physical body, structure started changing, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But when I was first kind of like introduced to the whole crystal meth, Tina, ice, that whole realm of crystal meth was actually from social sites like Jack, Grindr, A for A, BGC, which stands for Black Gay Chat, around 2011, 2012, and I started seeing certain jargon and acronyms pop up that I was totally unfamiliar with, like capital P and T. People would use words, and if the word had a T in it, they would make it a capital T. And people started using terminology like, do you party? And, being naive at first, of course, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll party when I'm not tired or if I have free time. And people were like, no, I don't mean that kind of party. I mean, do you party? Like, do you smoke Tina? And I was like, what is Tina? Now, I heard of Mary Jane. I've heard of weed. I heard of, what is Tina? I know only Tina I know is Tina Turner.
Right.
And so once it was broken down to me exactly what it was, I'm not really a person into that scene anyway. I don't judge, but I'm not into that. And I say, no, thank you. And so as time went on, this is 2012 going to 2013, I started seeing things starting to happen and shift in different people I knew, their attitudes, their behavior, their physical appearance, and I started realizing people were saying, oh, that person's on Tina, that person's on Ice, that person's on Chrissy, and these were, street terminologies for crystal meth. And I had a friend who had got a scholarship to New York City and was working as a dancer and totally lost the scholarship. He had no motivation. He started living with someone who was some kind of club promoter or something, and next thing I know, they lost their scholarship, and I didn't see them for months, and the next time I saw them, their whole appearance, they were emaciated.
Oh, wow.
And they were kind of ashamed to confront me or to speak to me, and when I kind of found out what was going on, then I said, okay, that's crystal meth. Okay, and then, that TV show called Breaking Bad,
yeah.
I started seeing that, and I started seeing a correlation, like, oh, okay, that's that. that stat. And I started seeing that connection, but I thought it was weird because it was happening in the black community. I did some research, and I knew it had its popularity within the white community, especially the white community of New York City, in places like Chelsea, certain places in Lower Manhattan. But I never knew it to be in the urban area. I mean, the most you would get black guys talking about is, they smoke weed, or you drink, or, you play spades, or something like that. I never really heard too much about people doing crystal meth. I did hear people at times doing cocaine or, coke, but I didn't see anything to where it was, like, ravaging people. Like, I'm sure you understand, like, back in the day, like, the late 80s, 90s, we had, like, the crack era.
Yes.
So I'm in my 30s, so I knew what that looked like. I remember watching New Jack City as a little kid.
Yes.
I remember watching Boys in the Hood or Menace to Society. You see the crackhead, or you see the, and we knew we don't want to be a part of that.
Right, right.
But I feel that this new generation of millennials, they didn't grow up seeing that. And so when it started to come into, especially I'm mostly speaking for New York City, but when it started coming to the neighborhood, especially in this way, I believe it took a lot of people by surprise, and they were trying something. They saw it as a party drug. Let me try it, let me feel good for a moment, and let me let it go. But what a lot of people didn't realize, that they could not let it go. And after seeing people devastated by it, I just said to myself, as a mid-30s black gay male that's a working professional, I feel it's my duty to speak on it. I feel it's my duty as an artist to do something about it. And so this is the lane that I chose to partake in, which was create a documentary, which is not so much about judging, but about creating a dialogue and exposing, so that the young ones, and even the ones that are not so young, but so someone can say, you know what, I saw that online, and I heard about the terminology, I don't want to be a part of it. And I felt to myself, even if I did good by one person, from them seeing that and say, you know what, I chose to make a different move, then I feel like I've done my job.
Because sometimes you really don't realize things till it kind of is brought to you at home, as the same case that happened to you. Is that something that you're now is it something that you're seeing a lot of black people within the LGBT community? Because it's one of those type of topics that you really just don't see. You have to really kind of pierce into. It's not like something that's always talked about or either brought very obvious, because in most cases, drugs kind of bring a certain level of shame. Are people much more aware of it now, or am I just the only one that's still under a rock when it comes to this type of topic?
Well, I think people are starting to become aware of it. I definitely know I've had a slew of people come to me and say, Michael, I had no earthly idea. Majority of the people that have told me they had no idea was either our straight counterparts, or it would be people in the LGBT Black and Latino community that was either married and kind of sequestered in their own world and, their own lane, or they're in a community outside of New York City that may not, have that, that stark hit yet from crystal meth. But from what I've researched and seen in LA, San Francisco, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philly, and New York City alone, those cities alone, also in Houston, I hear from, because I'm originally from Houston, Texas, but also from Houston, from some of my friends, they're telling me about, they're seeing a lot of partying and play, P&P, Tina, and now this is becoming a dialogue. And I think for especially millennials, people that, turn 21 from the year 2000 to now, I think the oldest millennial is 38, 39. And so I really feel like it's in that bracket of people between the late 30s and very early 20s that are single, that are going to clubs, that are going to raves, that are going to events. And I feel like those people are probably maybe the more informed, especially in those major cities like Atlanta and Philly and New York City, where this is starting to really run rampant.
Wait a minute. So you named a lot of places. You named a lot of cities. So is this something that's truly heavy in those cities? LA, Atlanta, Texas, all those places are truly inundated with Tina?
Well, from the information that I've gotten so far, as far as the urban demographic, now those cities that I've mentioned, they have been heavy as far as the white community has been concerned, definitely. But recently, in the past 4 years, the black community, especially in Atlanta, D.C., and New York City and Philly, have really been having a lot of infiltration of crystal meth into their urban communities. And, the urban communities, especially I can speak for New York, Bronx, Harlem, certain parts of Queens, Brooklyn, East New York, those places within, those boroughs of New York are heavily becoming filled with young adults who are becoming so inundated with crystal meth. It's starting to become uncanny. It's starting to become unreal. I'm hearing so many reports about people who know people that overdosed or that were found in bathtubs, that were found at sex parties, that were found at meth den dead. And we're talking about people who are 23, 26, 31. These are young gay black men that are dying from this addiction of crystal meth. And, the crazy part about it is that, and the reason I really, wanted to put this documentary out there is to raise awareness, but also for our community to do something for our kids. I feel like as a gay black male of a certain age, I feel like it becomes almost a part of your responsibility to try to give back. And sometimes, especially in this age, everything is so much about me, and selfies and, how I look, and everything's about me. But also, too, people have to realize we need to turn the mirror around and also, see what's about other people, too. And going out there helping. But yes, to answer your question, it is starting to become very popular in Houston. It's starting to become very popular. It is very popular in Atlanta. It's very popular in New York City, Philly, and D.C.
What's the strange part about that's kind of killing me is thinking to myself, okay, well, where is it really coming from? Is it something that's really more crossing over from the white community, is now entering into the clubs? Is it now entering into just certain neighborhoods of low income? Where is it being introduced? Do you know?
Well, as you know from, if we even look back at the Reagan era, we weren't having black folks come out of the civil rights movement in the 60s and late 70s, and then all of a sudden we have crack in here.
Right.
Someone came and brought those drugs into our community, as you and I both know.
Yeah,
Someone
of course.
came in the Reagan era, during the Clinton administration, and even now. Black folks from Baltimore, black folks from Compton, black folks from Brownsville, New York, black folks from Third Ward, Houston, are not taking planes to Colombia, are not taking planes to Honduras and getting these large quantities of flying them back in. They're being infiltrated into our neighborhood. But speaking specifically to crystal meth, I can definitely speak for New York City, and the research that I've done in the past year and a half, and this is based on my theory, but also based off of facts and statistics that are steady coming in slowly, because this is the new thing with all these young black people taking crystal meth, and the statistics and things are still being calculated, and things are still starting to be put out there online. But one of the foundations of why this has infiltrated, especially the urban area of New York, in the Bronx, Harlem, and Brooklyn, a lot of people have said that you started to get a lot of gay white men that started using crystal meth in these rave parties and these sex parties and things of that nature. And it became very popular within the gay white community in the mid to late 80s, the late 90s, and the early 2000s, for a simple fact, especially during that earlier time, a lot of gays were suffering with HIV, were suffering with depression, and a mentality came in that you're going to die anyway, so you might as well die partying.
Wow.
Having a sense of euphoria, having a sense of invincibility, and the white community the past 30 years started to see how damaging crystal meth was becoming to them. You start to get a lot of people, white people that will stop participating in crystal meth. a lot of them started seeking counseling and getting help from substance abuse counselors and things of that nature, weaning themselves off. But you still had that few people that were still using and that were still dealing. But now their clientele has dropped. So now they needed another demographic to try to, bring in another level of clientele.
Wow.
And from what I hear from large quantities of people that I've interviewed is that a lot of the well-to-do, white gay men who were on Wall Street, who were working corporate or who had plenty of money to live in Lower Manhattan or Soho or Chelsea, these certain well-to-do neighborhoods in Manhattan would start buying black escorts for, obvious reasons, sexual reasons, things of that nature. And what they would do, because a lot of the black escorts weren't familiar with crystal meth, and the code word they would use for that is Tina, they saw it as if it would be something that wasn't going to be that harmful or detrimental. And a lot of them were paid to use it because if they were paid to have unprotected sex, they would get more money. If they were paid to participate in drug use, they would get more money. So what happened here is that we started to get a large quantity of black escorts and young black men who were, of course, escorting and going to the realm of prostitution, but also now being introduced to crystal meth, not knowing how addictive it is. But when those white men finish using those black escorts, where are these young black men going back to?
Wow.
They're not going to Soho. They're not going to Wall Street. They're going back to Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn.
Right.
They're going back to East New York, Brooklyn. They're going back to Harlem. They're going back to the South Bronx. That's where they're going, and they're going to either sell it, they're going to start introducing it to their friends or to their lovers, and about 65 to 70% of the people that I interviewed that were addicted to crystal meth was introduced to it by a lover or a boyfriend or someone they was consistently having sex with on a regular basis.
Wow. Well, I'm kind of curious when it comes to the number of deaths that has occurred under Tina. What are those numbers? Do you know?
Right now, they still have statistics coming in. I've been closely engaged with the Gay Men's Health Center, the Bedford Stuyvesant Center for Family Health, and a lot of these statistics are still coming in, and that's why it's so devastating, because right now we're in this place of purgatory. We're in this place of unknown. We know something's going on. We're trying to get a hold onto it, but we don't quite have the logistics of everything yet. We just know that our black kids are starting to die, overdose, and use crystal meth. Gotcha. And this is where I'm coming into play. Even for myself, I'm not someone who works for the CDC or NASA or any of these research companies, but the research they do have about gay black men mostly deals with HIV statistics, deals with cocaine and crack era. We're talking about something that's 15 to 20 years ago. So,
wow.
When we're talking about crystal meth being in correlation with the number of deaths of millennials, let's say in Brooklyn or in New York alone, those numbers are still coming in. People are still gathering, because I had no platform really to start investigating too much. I had to go based off hearsay, experiences of tons of people who have experienced people who have died, passed away, or are addicted to crystal meth, and what little information they do have online dealing with the number of deaths in the Black and Latino LGBTQ community. Now, here's the thing. We could talk about the white community, and there is a slew of 25 years worth of data.
Wow.
Dealing with that. But when it comes to the Black and Latino gay community, or I should say queer community, it's very, very, non-existent.
Wow.
Because we didn't have that problem.
Wow.
There's information about blacks and the use of crack cocaine,
right,
but not young blacks in these urban areas with crystal meth.
Wow. So basically when it came down to starting your film, I do want to kind of get an understanding in terms of, how did you get the participants to actually contribute with your film, along with your research? Did you find these particular participants along this research trail? Did you actually find it along them, or how did you actually come across meeting these people?
Okay, well, how I came about it at first is that, and I'm very transparent. As a single gay black male, I do participate in Tinder. Looking at some of the geosocial sites, like Tinder, like Jacked, things of this nature. I'm not on it all the time, but when I am on it, I would see those terms, those P&P and do you do Tina and do you parTy, and it struck my curiosity. And one of the main things, besides seeing a friend of mine go through the ravage of crystal meth addiction, I came upon a 19-year-old who was trying to talk to me, and I told him, I said, you seem like a really handsome young man, but you're too young for me. I prefer somebody 30 and up. But I said, why do you have P&P? Are you participating in Tina or crystal meth? And they told me they did. And I said, how were you introduced to it? They said they met a guy online, actually 6 months after they graduated high school.
Wow.
They met a guy online who invited them to their house to have sex and to smoke weed. And he went over there, he had sex, he smoked weed, and when they finished smoking weed, he asked him, does he party and play? And at first he didn't know what it was. He asked him, does he do Tina? Does he slam? He had no idea what that is. He said, it's just a party drug. It's kind of like ecstasy. You feel good. It makes you feel good for a second. It makes you feel horny, which is another aspect how sex and crystal meth correlate together. And the young man said no. And he said, well, try Tina. It'll make you feel good. And he said, it's kind of like weed, but it just makes you want to have better sex.
Wow.
Of course, the 19-year-old was unaware. He was uninformed. He had no idea of any of the street terminologies for crystal meth. He felt like if he would have told him it was crystal meth, he probably would have taken it. But because he told him it was Tina, he thought it was another version of saying Mary Jane.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You see how things get misconstrued.
Absolutely.
You're not really informed.
Absolutely.
And he said he partook in the drug, and he said next thing he knew, he woke up in the morning and he was having sex with someone, and there was no condom usage involved whatsoever. And at that point, he said he didn't care. He just cared about how good the sex felt. And that day, he didn't go home for almost 2 days, and he continually had people in the same place where he was at when other people were coming over, continually having unprotected sex with him. And I asked him, would he be interested in telling his story? He said he was, and he said he did, and me working with him in the process, that's where it started as far as getting people to interview. He said he would, be interested, and I spoke to him, and I ended up not putting him in the film. The only reason I did that, I chose to do that, is because I felt like he was so young and just getting started.
Yeah.
And I actually spoke, speaking honestly with his mother, which was a weird concept. This is how I met your son. But they were working on, with their insurance and getting him some help and things of that nature. So I was really happy about that. I haven't spoken to him in almost about 2 months.
Yeah.
But from the last time I did speak to him, they were on that journey and they were on that process. But it started from there. So from that young man, I started talking to other people, and I started seeking out other people that were saying they party and play, and just boldly asking them, would you be interested? I'm a filmmaker. I want to talk about this. I'm intrigued in why you started doing crystal meth.
Wow. And you just actually had the feature. You featured it was it in Philadelphia or was it in New York?
It was in New York City, in Harlem.
So how was it received?
It was beautifully received. At the end, I ended up getting a standing ovation, and people were just saying how much it affected them. I also had some people that were also battling crystal meth addiction that came to the premiere, and they said they're glad that someone is speaking about it, and
wow.
That made me feel really good. I had also, besides yourself, I had other aspects of the media reach out to me as far as Out Magazine and The Advocate and Boy Culture and Logo. Even did an article on Party Boy, and just for it to get this overwhelming, amount of attention nationally and internationally, I'm just very stoked about the whole ordeal, and I just want to bring a voice to crystal meth addiction in the urban queer community, not to negate anyone that's not in the urban queer community,
yes,
but specifically our kids, because not to talk about anyone else's kids, but our kids, as far as our young
yes,
Black and Latino queer kids, sometimes we come from homes where single parents, some may not have no parents at all, the grandmother may be raising them, some of us come from different economic backgrounds, and it may not be easy for us to spend $10,000 or $20,000 just sending one of our kids to rehab because we may not have it.
Exactly.
So now you have this group of lost young queer people of color, and they're addicted, and they don't know what to do, and they're battling with depression. And just being a young gay Black person or young gay Black Latino person, it's hard enough in this world. Let alone you're battling and fighting an addiction.
Right. I guess the funny part to me, or the part that I'm just not quite understanding, especially when it comes to a lot of millennials, a lot of them actually are accepting of the LGBT community. In many cases, you get this feeling that those who are within this generation, they actually are accepting of who they are. So why would they partake into something like this?
I think, and this is based off my own theory, I think that I know one of the aspects of crystal meth, and I speak about it, one of the falsehoods of kind of like crystal meth that some people may deem alluring is that having long bursts of energy, being able to have a sex drive that can go on for days.
So is it really for the sex experience, really?
I'm sorry.
Is it really for the sex experience?
A lot of it is for the sex experience. A lot of it is for energy. A lot of it is for, to some extent, people feel that it will give them long-lasting levels of like concentration when they're at work or doing something. But those are all like falsehoods and like illusions that people kind of like say that crystal meth does, and it can give you that kind of energy. It can give you a sexual boost. But what people don't realize that it also can bring a sexual decline to you too. A lot of young people don't realize that using crystal meth also gives you erectile dysfunction.
Whoa.
And they're not able to use their penis or are able to get erect, even though they may still have the sensation of being horny or wanting to have sex, but they will not be able to, as we would say, get up. Another one too is constantly having a euphoric experience of wanting to have sex at any cost. And this is when a lot of people who are using crystal meth go on what's called 2 and 3 day sex binges, where a lot of them will get on these geo social sites, and they will constantly find people having washed in days or cleaned up, and they will constantly find people that want to have engaged in sex, and they will go from one person's house to the next person's house to the next person's house, and also to go days without eating. This is how you get a lot of people who are using crystal meth, and their bodies look so skinny and so small, they almost look emaciated. It's because they will go days without food, and also at the same amount of days they will go without food, they will go without sleep.
Wow. It's kind of funny you mentioned that, because there was a friend of mine who actually did come across something very similar to this. And this particular young man was with a white gay male, and with that white gay male, that particular person was bringing him around to different locations, and if anything, he was using the younger black guy to see can he also partake in having threesomes, and he would use him as a tool. So the white guy would basically bring him around to different areas, and this is definitely something that's hitting Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and it's one of the reasons why I thought this was important to actually bring this about, because it definitely is something that you see it, but you don't see it as often to kind of bring enough attention to yourselves. And that's one of the reasons why I really, truly adore the fact that this film was even made, because I don't think there's anything out there even being promoted or talked about at all. So it seems like to me this is to be the first of its kind to actually discuss this particular topic. Are any of the community centers now beginning to take this on as a battle of their own as well?
Yes. Well, two definitely. And they're the two centers that are specifically based for queer people of color. One's in Harlem, called Harlem United. Another one is in downtown Brooklyn, called GMAD, which stands for Gay Men of African Descent. And we also have BMK, which stands for Brooklyn Men Connect. These are all organizations dealing with queer people of color, and they're all starting now to really have forums about crystal meth addiction, especially for the gay millennials or our young transgender queer people. And they're all starting to have conversations. They're starting to have forums, specifically to GMAD, which stands for Gay Men of African Descent. They have a clinical manager named Chris Johnson, who is also working with some medical professionals and helping with treatment for our young brothers and sisters, queer brothers and sisters of color, to get help. And they're really underfunded, and they're working on getting better funded for all those different programs. And so we're just hoping, with this documentary being put out, and all of us creating a dialogue, that these young people are going to open up their doors and they're going to come out and they're going to say, I'm battling with crystal meth addiction. As actually what happened at the premiere, we had young people come out and speak to some of the medical professionals that actually came to the event and said that they want to get help. And when I saw those kind of things, it just really warmed my heart.
Wow, this is so far I'm actually seeing some really good results really coming from this. Now, with the film, where else do you plan on taking it? How can people in LA, how can people in Atlanta, Miami, how can we see this film?
Okay, well, as far as the film right now, we're working on taking the film to Philly, DC, Atlanta, Houston, and LA for screenings. We also have some promoters that are working with us that want to do a screening in London. They reached out to us a few days ago, and they want to do a screening in London. But as far as being able to see the entire film, we're kind of working on some distribution deals right now, and hopefully we can get it massively on the digital market, as far as maybe like a Hulu or Netflix or an AOL Originals on that platform. So we're working that out, but definitely if people want to get more information regarding parTy Boy, the documentary, if you go to your Facebook and you look under the page for parTy Boy documentary, it should definitely pop up. It will give you some updates about parTy Boy, the documentary, what we're going to be showing, what we're going to be premiering.
This is what we'll definitely hear, Brothaspeak Podcast. We're going to definitely feature as much information as possible. So even those who are in those neighborhoods, they can be able to kind of find out as much information as possible, where they can see it, where can they go. So we'll definitely make sure that it's on the episode as well. So we want to make sure that's something that everyone definitely knows about as well. You're already working on several things already. Is this something that you're going to be doing for the next several years, or do you already have another project in mind that you plan on doing after parTy Boy has been, the issue has really been cultivated and pretty much put it out there?
Right. Well, we're definitely for the next month, because I'm such an Aries. I'm such a busybody. So once I finish with one thing, I'm on to the next. But definitely, parTy Boy has a place in my heart only because it has affected me with a family member, as well as a few good friends, as well as just being a professional gay black man of a certain age in my community, and me not having no children of my own, but wanting to be able to help those who may need direction. It's always going to have a place in my heart. I'm always going to be a strong advocate for creating a dialogue about addiction, because there's many things that people can be addicted to. Alcohol, there's multiple things, but this in specific, crystal meth, is something I chose to speak on dealing with parTy Boy. So as soon as we're kind of working on the promotion and getting the distribution done with that, I want that to happen as soon as possible. And I'm just waiting for that to be put out there into the universe so everyone can watch it and be more informed. And I'm actually in the process right now my second documentary, and the name of that documentary is called G for Generous, and it's about prostitution in the queer urban community.
Wow. Well, let me tell you, you are definitely tackling some topics that I would love to have you come back and definitely talk about, because this definitely is something that people need to know about. These are all the subjects that are completely interesting to me to discuss. I am kind of curious, though, when it comes to some of the participants who are involved. Well, let me ask this question first. How long did this project actually take?
Oh, this project actually took about, as far as the actual production, my production company is called Rice Creative. You can go to rice.creative on IG or either Rice Creative 1 on Facebook. But my production company, we started filming and planning and producing and laying the ground plan for everything about 8 months ago.
Okay.
And, you know, once production was pretty much finished and we wrapped up, we had the premiere. So it literally was an 8-month project. For me, I usually work faster, but the reason why is because, you know, we're dealing with a documentary, dealing with people and their schedules, and a lot of times, like in the process of filming this, you know, I would get a lot of participants. I really wanted to hit upon speaking to some lesbians, you know, about, you know, lesbian women of color, about their experience dealing with crystal meth. And even though it was very, very few that I was able to get in contact with, a lot of people kind of retracted at the end and didn't want it to come out. And I'm a producer. I work with integrity.
Yes.
You know, I'm not going to put something out just so I can get views or hits or try to get a deal off the back of somebody else's story or hurt or pain or addiction. Everyone I spoke to, I got to know before filming even took place, because I wanted them to feel comfortable, and I wanted to make sure that they were sure about what they wanted to do. And so that right there alone took time, and it took a process.
Gotcha.
I think we got a really good product that could help and be beneficial.
Now, with the people involved, what happened to them after the project was over? Are they in terms of getting help now? Are they still using, or what's the effects for the people who are part of the participant, the young men?
With some of the young men, I think about 7 in total that I was able to work with and speak with regarding crystal meth addiction. Only 2 out of the 7. One is actually off. It's been about 4 months. He's been off crystal meth.
Great.
The other young man is still trying to go back and forth from rehab, and then the other 5 are pretty much still selling and doing it.
Wow.
And one of the things I wanted to tell people about it, this wasn't just about, you know, exploring what's going on with these people. I also had help, was offered help within this project. I had a doctor, a substance abuse psychiatrist named Dr. Owen Muir here in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and he was also part of the project. A young, you know, Jewish doctor who was really passionate about helping our people, you know, our young, you know, queer millennials in battling crystal meth. And he did a wonderful thing by offering his services free of charge for those that didn't get insurance or didn't seek insurance to try to get help. And I thought that was incredible.
That's outstanding. Wow.
Very outstanding. I thought that was incredible. And that definitely was given to each person who was a part of the documentary, whether they decided to take it or not. It definitely was put out there for them.
Wow. One thing's for sure, there's anything that we can do at Brothaspeak to try to really push this film and get as much attention as possible, even down here at the community centers, I'm all for it. I definitely think this is a subject that must be told, and definitely your film thinks it's going to be a great tool for many people to be able to see it, understand it, and to be able to help towards this topic. So let me tell you something. I truly appreciate you for coming on the show, bringing more attention to this topic. Thank you so much, Mr. Rice. Now, again, I'm going to put a lot of your information directly on the site. Is there any particular place that they can actually go to just kind of see the trailer?
All right, yeah. So thank you so much, Chris, by the way. I really appreciate you contacting contacting me regarding this documentary and contacting my publicist. I really appreciate that, and it's places and areas like Brothaspeak where, you know, it could reach out to a great number of people and let them be informed about what's going on. I just want to say I really appreciate you, Chris, from that aspect. And as far as seeing the trailer, you can go to Facebook and you can see the trailer if you go to Rice Creative 1. That's Rice Creative and the number 1. Or you can either go to parTy Boy Documentary on Facebook, or you can go to my production company, my production house on IG, which is Rice, RICE.creative, and there you will see the link to click on the trailer for parTy Boy.
Wow, thank you so much. I definitely want to make sure I would encourage a lot of people to really check that out. And again, get a more awareness of what's really happening in your community. Sometimes you see it and a lot of times you don't. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not there. So again, with creative people like Mr. Rice here to actually bring that information out is definitely one of we should take as our responsibility to go out there as much as possible and help those who are under such a horrible drug that seems to be extremely addictive and kind of take a little bit of a hold there to kind of really get off. So let me tell you something. I'm not a big on drugs. Trust me, I'm not one of those type of party individuals, but I know a lot of people who have struggled with it. It does take a lot to get off. So please give your support and definitely support this film as much as possible. Thank you again so much, Mr. Rice. You really gave me a lot more insight in terms of understanding, and I hope everyone did too.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Art. This is Chris Brothaspeak Podcast. You guys have a wonderful day.